the night, a dark July summer. It was around 2 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep. My foot was itchy. I was getting a little sweaty, and I decided it was time to get out of bed. I had a couple things in my mind, and have you ever had one of those nights where you just couldn't sleep and you just needed to get up and maybe move around? You had something on your mind, but you didn't know what it was. I had one of those nights. In fact, it was the night of July 11th, 2011. 10 years ago, to be exact. I remember going downstairs, trying not to wake anybody, and I turned on my computer. Now, for me, that's the worst thing that I could possibly do, because if it's the middle of the night and I turned on my computer, I'm probably not going back to bed. It's probably going to be one of those long nights again where you're just going to sit and do work. But this night was unlike any other night. This was the night that changed my life forever. For the last 20 years, I've been in education, having worked with elementary, middle, high school, and even adults. I spent the good first half of my teaching career as an orchestra director, working with young orchestras and having the opportunity to conduct some of the major pieces in the orchestral repertoire and conduct some pretty awesome people up in New York. But this night, it wasn't about music. Or was it? See, on this night, I had a vision in my head. That vision was to create something special. You see, a few months before that, I was with my wife. We were in Manhattan, and we were getting her instrument fixed. She's a double bass player. I play the viola. And on the way from Philadelphia up to New York, takes about an hour and a half, I was listening to a podcast. Now, back yourself up about 2011, podcasts weren't that big. Didn't really know what they were at the time. But I decided to listen to one because in the high school that I was working in, we had just gotten a brand new Mac computer lab, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about the stuff that I was going to be teaching off of. So, I happened to find a podcast that was teaching others how to use their Macs. In fact, it was called Your Mac Show. We were driving up, and I was listening to this podcast. I remember it vividly. The guy, his name was Dennis. He was doing a little contest about how to use your Mac, and he asked if anybody knows the answer to this question, give me a call, send me an email. You might be able to win a little prize. Not thinking anything of it, I continued the drive up to New York. We got to the violin shop, and we were waiting for about an hour or so for the instrument to be ready to take back home. And while we were at the violin shop, I happened to listen to another episode, and another episode, and this guy Dennis kept asking that same question on each of the shows. And I thought, maybe nobody's answered it yet. So while we're sitting there, I pulled out my phone, and I texted the guy, answered the question, sent an email. And in a few hours, on the way home, he actually wrote me back and said, hey, you got the right answer. Congratulations. I'm going to send you a $50 iTunes card. Man, that was awesome. I never thought something like that could happen. You listen to the radio an awful lot, but whoever talks to the DJ on the radio, here was this medium called a podcast, and you can talk to the guy, and he talks to you back. I thought that was pretty cool. A few weeks go by, we actually connected. We communicated, and we had this plan to have me be on his show. And that was the beginning of a great friendship. Over time, Your Mac Show actually sprung another episode, another show called Apple Aid. And that was actually Dennis and I doing the, what a podcast was back in 2011. It was two guys talking about their iPhones. It was awesome. Bought my first microphone, got my first pair of headphones. I was having fun. I was using a Mac at that point in time too. So it was kind of neat. Somewhere in the middle of April, maybe even May, I started to talk to Dennis about maybe I want to do a show of my own. He's like, that'd be a great idea. A few weeks goes by. Maybe I'm thinking about doing a show. I don't know what it is for, but you know how you do this show where you take apart your Mac and you talk about all the different parts? I want to do something like that for teachers. And it was pretty interesting. We had this conversation in the end of June, and I said, I really, really want to do something. What do you think? And you know what he said to me? He says, Jeff, you're fired. I said, what? And he says, yeah, why don't you go do your own show? And it wasn't a mean thing. It was more of that mama bird trying to push that baby bird off the ledge to see if he can fly. So there I was, trying to figure out what to do. And the school year, of course, was ending. So there we are on that night of July 11th. I couldn't sleep. I had these ideas of I want to do something. I didn't know what it was. I go downstairs, turn on that computer, and suddenly it hits me. This image of an apple standing for teacher and a mortarboard standing for graduation. And I put those things together. Now, I had an image in my mind, but what do you do next? Well, start looking for names. And thinking back to the iPhone, thinking back to the iPod, right? These are two different words. I for internet and pod for podcast, iPod, right? And so I started trying to be a little clever. And I thought broadcast with teachers, and suddenly there we were at 3 a.m, and the word TeacherCast came out. I had a logo, I had some words. Within the next couple hours, I grabbed all of the social media, I bought the domain, I found a website editor, and man, I didn't sleep that night, and I got to tell you, in the last 10 years, I haven't slept very much either. But that was actually the beginning of the second phase of my career. You see, I was a music teacher for all of this time, and this was my first awakening into the world of technology, into the world of professional development. So I'm here to ask you guys a question today. Has anything like this ever happened to you? Have you ever had an idea that you cared so much about that you just said, I'm going for it? We find this story very common in the movies. A hero comes along and they have to make a decision. Do you take the red pill? Do you take that blue pill? Do you choose chocolate or do you choose vanilla? The question that I have for you today is, who's in charge of your life? Who's in charge of the decisions that you make? What do you do when you find out that it might not be you? I'm going to let you ponder on those things just for a second. Because this whole concept of choosing your path, making sure that you're in that right direction, and really being in control of that direction is why you're here today. You either might be figuring out where you're going to go with your future. You might be currently sitting in a college going, what do I want to do after I get out of college? We all have these decisions. And the nice thing is that we're all here to help each other and support each other with these decisions. But I'm still going to ask you this question. Are these decisions made by you, for you, or with you? See, what I didn't realize at the time was I was not only making this decision for me, but I was making this decision for people I had never met yet. You see, when I made that decision, I was already married, and I was having a great time as this orchestra director. But what I didn't know was what these decisions were going to lead to in my life and in the lives of others. Fast forward a bit. The TeacherCast website is built. It turns into not just a single podcast, but it turns into a multi-user blog. Before I knew it, I had teachers from all around the country asking to write on the website, asking to be a part of the podcast. And before you know it, it was going really, really well. I started multiple shows. I even started live streaming. I had a group of teachers that got together. We called ourselves the Tech Educator Podcast. We even had a puppet. It was an amazing time. But sometimes decisions are not made for you. Sometimes you don't know that those decisions are being made for you. So there we were. 2011 goes by, 2012 goes by, and we're in the middle of 2013. And my wife comes to me and she says, I think it's time. I think we're going to be doing this, family thing. Now, talk about a decision that you don't get a chance to make on your own. Talk about a decision that, you don't see these decisions coming sometimes. But there she was saying, it's time to do this. And so there we were in the doctor's office, hearing the words that everybody wants to hear. Congratulations, you're going to be a father. But it wasn't that decision that was made for me. Oh, no. There was a much bigger decision involved that really wasn't anything, had to do with. He says, oh, you're not going to be a father once over. You're having triplets. And I said, I'm sorry, what? And he showed us this picture of 3 very tiny things. I'll never forget it. What I didn't realize was that those decisions that were being made there were going to change and change everything forever. A few months after that, the triplets came. They came early. 4 months early, in fact. We actually had our children on a somewhat vacation. I was working at our teachers convention in New Jersey doing TeacherCast, broadcasting at a large 20,000 educator convention. And luckily, my wife was there. She calls me on the phone and she says, it's time. We're ready. They're here. Let's do this. Didn't know what to do. Quickly had some friends help me pack up my stuff. Ran across the room to see her in the hotel. Called an ambulance. My first time I ever had to do the 911 call. Got the ambulance in, and we were rolling. And in a matter of hours, I was not a dad once over. I was not a dad twice over. I was a dad 3 times over. It's an amazing thing. I hope you have an opportunity to do it yourself one day too. Maybe not triplets, but kids are absolutely amazing. They make you rethink these decisions, because if it wasn't for the podcast, my life would look a little different than it does right now. You see, one of the things that we found was when you have a support group around you, when you spend your time building up your network, when you spend your time sharing your passions with others, you find that when you need help and when you need support, those people, those support groups, those institutions that you're building will come back. You see, if you look at the top of TeacherCast, it says on the top left underneath of the mast, it's a place for teachers to help other teachers. That was one of the things that hit me like a lightning bolt that night when I decided to create TeacherCast, a place for teachers to help other teachers. But what I didn't realize was what I was actually doing that night was creating a place for other teachers to help me. I didn't realize that night that the decisions I was making about creating a show and creating a podcast and creating a website was going to one day lead me to having the opportunity to have other people help me out. But it did. And my students have been amazing. My kids are now 7, and it's been an amazing ride. I want you to think about something that you're passionate about. I want you to think about something that you've done in your life or that you would like to do in your life. How are you doing it? How are you planning it? What are some of the things that you're doing right now to maybe set the stage for that next phase in your life? Have you talked to anybody about it? Have you shared about it? Have you written it down? I'll even go one step further. Did you pick out your domain name yet? I know that's a weird one, but look, if you have an idea out there, it's never too early to get that domain name. Trust me, I'm teachercast.net for a reason. Side note, teachercast.com was taken way before I ever got here. So make sure that if you've got a great idea, you capture that idea. You write down that idea. and you own that idea. So there we were, parents, and we had three amazing kids in front of us. But what were the decisions going to be? Were we going to choose chocolate or were we going to choose vanilla? Now, I say this for one important reason. If I ask you, do you want to choose chocolate or vanilla? You might choose chocolate. If I ask you why you're going to choose chocolate, you might say, I really like chocolate. I've had chocolate all my life. I enjoy having chocolate. That's a good answer. But I'm going to then look at you and say, what's actually in control of your decisions? And if you say, well, I'm choosing chocolate because I like chocolate, you're actually telling me that your experiences are controlling your destiny, not yourself. If you say, I'm going to choose vanilla because this time I choose to have vanilla, then you're really saying, I'm going to be always living in the moment and choosing what I want in the moment that I want it. Sometimes we don't have those opportunities. When you're having triplets, you say, all right, I know how to do this. I'm going to go with the flow. But sometimes when you're faced with, do I create a TeacherCast? Do I create a podcast? You sometimes have to make that decision that says, no matter what happens, I'm going to put my head down and go for this. What is yours? Are you going to choose chocolate or vanilla? In other words, are you going to choose the red pill or the blue pill? You see, a long time ago, a movie came out, a movie that changed the way we think of reality. That movie is The Matrix. I'm going to play a little clip for you here, and I want you to ask yourself the question that is asked of the main character.
This is it? Let me give you one piece of advice. Be honest. He knows more than you can imagine.
At last. Welcome, Neo. As you no doubt have guessed, I am Morpheus.
It's an honor to meet you.
No, the honor is mine. Please, come, sit. I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate, Neo?
No,
Why not?
because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean.
So as Morpheus asked Neo, I'm going to ask it to you. Do you believe in fate? Do you believe that something is going to happen whether you like it or not? Now, Neo's answer was simple. I don't believe in fate because I don't like believing that I am not in control of my future. In other words, he's not choosing chocolate because he likes chocolate. He's not choosing chocolate because yesterday he had chocolate and it was really good, so he wants to do it again. Today, he's choosing vanilla because he wants to be in control of his future. Let's continue on with our story. Our triplets were born. It was an amazing day. Lots of pictures, lots of sadness. Our triplets were born months early. They were born in November, should have been born in February. Lots of time in the middle of that. We learned a bit about what's called a NICU, a neonatal intensive care unit. And I got to tell you, if you've ever had a chance to visit a NICU, know somebody who's lived in a NICU, these people who work there are angels. They have wings, they have halos, they are there to support you and your students. On the night that my triplets were born, we realized that one of them had an issue. He actually had a little bit of air outside of his lungs and needed to have some procedures done to him. Unfortunately, the only way that these procedures could have happened was if we put him on a helicopter and we sent him away. Now, imagine being there, trying to put everything into perspective of what's been happening for you, and what's been happening with you. And next thing you know, one of your kids that was just born has to go away. This amazing helicopter came down. Doctors ran out, wrapped him up, and took him actually to Delaware. I had 2 kids in one state. I had 1 kid in another state. Talk about making those tough decisions. But if we weren't there at that hospital, wouldn't have happened. Wouldn't have known where to take this kid. Do you believe in fate? Do you believe you're in control of your life? Sometimes these decisions are tough, and sometimes these decisions are easy. They're made for you. I am proud to say right now that our kids, again, are 7 years old. They're in 2nd grade, and they're doing well. It is amazing to see what's happened to them over the last couple years. So here we are. You've got a lot of amazing opportunities in front of you, and you're going to have some tough decisions to make. What is it? The red pill, the blue pill, chocolate, or vanilla? Here's what I can tell you. If you have a fork in the road, you've got to take it. So as you go through this week's conference, as you have a chance to digest everything that's being said to you and shared with you, I want you to think of 3 important things. Number 1, all the decisions that you make are yours. You need to own them. You need to take these decisions and say, I am going to make this choice because I want to make this choice. Sure, it's easy to say, well, chocolate tells me that this choice before happened. I should make this choice again, but that's not always the best option. Thinking about what you're going to do, talking it over with yourself, your friends, and your family, always be making that right decision. You see, if you were sitting at a graduation, somebody might get up and say, look to your left, look to your right. Somebody is not going to be here at the end of graduation. And I look at that and I say, all right, let's twist that a little. Look to your left, look to your right. Don't make the same mistakes that they have. For me, I'm always making sure that my eyes are not only just looking forward, but they're also looking around and seeing what others are doing. How do they build their podcasts? How do they build their websites? How are they teaching their students? So the first thing I want to leave you with is always be looking around and make sure that you're learning from not only your own mistakes, but the mistakes of others. The second thing I want to leave you with is come up with some way to keep yourself grounded. Keep yourself focused. That could be so many things. That could be staying organized. That could be making sure that at the end of the day, everything you're supposed to do is finished, so that way you've got nothing left over. That could even be just making sure that you know what the road ahead is, so that way when those decisions do come, it's not up to fate. It's up to you. Making sure that you are grounded in who you are, what your decisions are, and where you're going to be in the next 2, 3, 4 years is really, really important. And the number 3 thing that I want to leave you with is probably the most important. Have a strong network. It is all about network these days. Making sure that when you need to reach out for somebody, that you have somebody who's there. Remember, when I was making TeacherCast, I didn't realize that not only was I creating a place for teachers to help other teachers, I was actually creating a foundation that when I had to leave to go be with my wife, I had people around me who knew me, who cared about me, and were able to take care of my stuff and pack it all up and make sure that I was able to do what I needed to do when I needed to do it. It's an amazing thing to have a network. So what's your network? Is it the people around you? Is it the people that you meet on social media? Is it the people that are sitting in your school? Wherever that network is, build that network out for you, dig that taproot and dig it deep. Make sure that the stuff you're doing is going to be helpful not only for you and for others. But you know what? It's not always about these three things, because there is a fourth. You see, for the last 10 years, I've ended every one of my shows the same exact way. And I'm going to end today by saying it to you. You see, one of the things that is a common thread with everything that I do is passion. If you're going to do it, be passionate about it. One of the things that I love doing is just sharing my world with others. It comes out in my teaching, it comes out in my broadcasting, and when I was conducting, it came out on the stage with the musicians that I work with. And for you, I hope you find your passions, and if you have something that you're passionate with, I hope you have a moment to share it with others and share it widely and share it often. So I will end today by saying to you what I say at the end of all of my shows. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. My name is Jeff Bradbury, and if you ever need to reach me, you certainly can at the email address below. And on behalf of everybody here in the TeacherCast Educational Network, keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with each other. Good night, everybody.